I remember being born. Some people say that completely seriously. They describe the light, the cold, a face leaning over them. One of them told me their mother confirmed the details. The room, what she was wearing, what she said that day.
And before anything else, you need to understand this. They are not lying. They're not making it up for attention. They are describing something they genuinely experience as a memory. It feels to them exactly the way remembering your last birthday feels to you. It just never happened.
Their brain built it, quietly, over years, out of photographs and stories and imagination, and then filed it under things I lived through. No warning label, no difference in texture. And once you understand how that's possible, a much more uncomfortable question shows up, one that isn't about them at all.
Because if a brain can manufacture a memory that vivid out of nothing and hand it back to you as the truth, how would you ever know which of yours are real? Start with the birth memory itself. It can't be real, and the reason is plumbing. The part of your brain that files episodic memories doesn't finish assembling until years after you're born. Autobiographical memory, the kind you can call up on demand, doesn't switch on until around 3.5. Before that, experiences happen. They just don't get stored in a format your adult mind can open. So when someone recalls the delivery room, the ceiling lights, their mother's face, the raw material is real. It's simply not from that day. And this isn't a rare glitch in a handful of people. When researchers collected 6,500 people's earliest memories, they concluded that around 40% of them were probably fictional, reconstructed, not recalled. 4 in 10. Which brings up the thing people always say next. But my mother confirmed it. Of course she did. She can confirm the room, the blanket, what she was wearing. She was there. Those details are real, and she is almost certainly the person who gave them to you. Probably more than once. What she cannot confirm is the only part that actually matters, that you experienced any of it. She's verifying the set, not the memory. Here's where it does come from, and it's the most human glitch there is. Your brain is excellent at storing content. It is surprisingly bad at storing where that content came from. You hear the story at the dinner table every year. You see the photograph. You picture it. You can't help picturing it. And your brain keeps all of that. But the little tag that says this one was imagined, this one was told to you, is fragile. It falls off. What's left is the image, vivid, emotional, first person, indistinguishable from a memory, because at that point, mechanically, it is one. Scientists call it a source monitoring error. You didn't remember the event. You remembered imagining it and lost the receipt. Which is a lovely theory. So in 1995, a psychologist named Elizabeth Loftus decided to test it by planting one. She gave 24 people 4 short stories from their own childhood, supposedly collected from their families. 3 were true. 1 was completely invented. When you were about 5, you got lost in a shopping mall. You cried, and an elderly stranger found you. It never happened to any of them. About a quarter of them remembered it anyway, and they didn't just say, yeah, maybe. They elaborated. They added the man's flannel shirt, what the mall smelled like, how frightened they were. Details nobody had given them, because they weren't reciting a story. They were remembering. It just wasn't real. That experiment has now been run hundreds of times, across countries and age groups. The rate sits somewhere between 30 and 50%. Read that again. Tell a room full of people about a childhood event that never happened, gently, 3 times, and a third to half of them will hand it back to you as a memory. Now push it, because you might be thinking, fine, getting lost in a mall is small, harmless, easy to believe. You'd notice if it were something big. In 2015, Julia Shaw and Stephen Porter tested exactly that. Same method, 3 friendly interviews, a little encouragement to try to remember. But this time, the invented event was that as a teenager, you committed a crime. Theft, assault, in some cases assault with a weapon, and the police were called. By the 3rd interview, 70% of participants were classified as having a full, false memory of a crime they never committed. Not a vague feeling, detailed accounts, what was said, how it felt, what the officer looked like. Now, honesty matters here. That 70% is disputed. Other researchers went back through the transcripts with stricter criteria and put the real figure closer to 26 or 30%. But sit with the smaller number for a second. Even at the low end, roughly 1 in 4 people can be walked into a detailed memory of committing a crime in 3 conversations by someone being nice to them. So why is memory this soft? Because of what happens every single time you use one. We picture remembering like opening a file. Press play, watch the recording, put it back untouched. That is not what happens. In the year 2000, a neuroscientist named Kareem Nader showed that when a memory is recalled, it becomes unstable again. It has to be physically rebuilt with new proteins in order to keep existing. He proved it by blocking that rebuild in rats at the exact moment of recall. The memory didn't fail to load. It was gone, permanently. Which means remembering isn't reading. Remembering is rewriting, and every rewrite happens in today's brain, with today's mood, today's beliefs, today's version of you holding the pen, a little louder here, a little clearer there. So the memory you've told the most times, the story you're proudest of, the one you've polished for years, that isn't your best preserved memory. It's your most edited one. And there's a reason your brain is built this way. Memory didn't evolve to be an archive. It evolved to help you predict what happens next. And a system built for predicting has to stay editable. The same flexibility that lets you learn from yesterday is what lets yesterday be quietly rewritten. And this stops being a curiosity the moment it leaves your head. In the United States, among the wrongful convictions later overturned by DNA evidence, 69% involved a witness who identified the wrong person. In 82 of those cases, a single eyewitness was the only evidence there was. Those witnesses weren't lying either. They pointed across a courtroom, said, "That's him," and they meant it. They were certain. That's the part that should unsettle you. Not that memory fails, that it fails without telling you. There's no flicker, no static, no sense that this one might be reconstructed. Confidence is not a signal of accuracy. It never was. So tonight, think of your favorite memory, the one you'd save. A person, a room, a day that made you who you are. That's the one you've taken out and told more than any other, which means it's the one you've rebuilt more than any other. The version sitting in your head right now isn't the day. It's a copy of a copy of a copy. Each one made a little warmer, a little more like the story you needed it to be. And that isn't a tragedy. That's what a memory is, not a recording of your life, a story your brain keeps telling you about who you are and quietly keeps improving. The people who remember being born aren't broken. They're running the same machinery you are, just a little further than you can see. So hold your memories a bit more gently than you did this morning, not because they're false, but because they're alive. And the one thing you can never do is catch yourself changing them,